All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Solar Sundays. Apologies for missing last week. We were preoccupied with other social stuff. We are busy men with lives. But we're back and we're joined by Demoritus to talk about a good use of social media and connections online. It feels like everybody these days is talking about like the dangers of social media, the vice traps, the addictions, and this is all very real, and it's very like important to be aware of and mindful and control that. But there are positive ways, I think, to use social media to network, to use it in a productive manner as well. We talked today about in the national problems, probably in the top 10 list is fentanyl. There's a lot of bad ways to use fentanyl, but it's a legitimate anesthetic too. And I think social media has a few more upsides than a literal like coma inducing drug. Timortis, do you mind introducing yourself, and we'll kind of roll from there?
Yeah, sure. Part of my thought for having this conversation was kind of reflecting over the way that I have used social media in this past year to kind of revolutionize my life in a lot of ways. I started a sales career about a year ago, and with that comes a lot of networking and a lot of use of social media to kind of make a name for yourself and get the name of your service, your company out in front of as many eyes as you can. I've had to take to using LinkedIn strategically to advance my sales career. I've had to use Facebook and Instagram and other tools to try to make a name for myself. So I feel like the past year has really changed the way that I look at social media as a tool for facilitating positive relationships that can ultimately make you friends, make you colleagues, and make you money.
Yeah. And I mean, it's easy, I think, for people to look down on money and on the really poisonous one is looking down on sales. It's a very it's a trap I've fallen into myself on occasion. But the danger, as Aristotle points out, of like rhetoric, because that's kind of what we're talking about. Sales is like a subcategory of rhetoric, is you can persuade people to into things they don't need or things that are bad for them. But that's true of force and of other virtues that we talk. We All virtues can be abused and misused, and that's no argument against the virtue itself. And the ability to be persuasive and to sell yourself and to network with others and to make money is a virtue. It is a good thing, and it's a valuable thing, and there's something about it that I think causes many people to focus on the abuses rather than on the positive uses. I'm not sure what that is, but
Well, Demoritus, you live in a much, I spend a lot of time talking to you. You're in the, same regional fire as me. Um, and, you live in a smaller community that's not sort of like a New York City or, DC where I am. And so what I'm hearing from you a lot is that along with this, like, the position you have at your job and the opportunities it's provided and the ways that you've used social media, the internet to navigate through that, a lot of the people that you're dealing with are like neighbors. So you're
Mhm.
cultivating, so, like what makes, what's different in that regard where you're actually, it sounds like you're cultivating actual personal relationships that have meaning, like with, the sales as a medium.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think I'm in a fortunate position that perhaps a lot of salespeople don't find themselves in, where I am in a insulated, semi-rural, semi-urban community where I grew up. So I do have roots in this community. Um,
nice.
but doing sales here has strengthened my connections to the community in a lot of ways. My preferred way whenever I go and do sales is not to sit in an office and make random dials on the phone or send out blasts of email. I prefer to be introducing myself to people, walking into businesses and just trying to establish a relationship, not so much make a sale and obviously that is the end goal. But if I set a goal to just make a connection, a meaningful relationship in a place of business and get to know them, get to know their challenges, come in with a problem solving mindset. But in order to solve a problem, you have to identify what that problem is first. So
Yes.
I'm just coming in trying to be the best listener that I can and establish myself as a trusted individual that's just genuinely trying to collaborate to help solve a problem.
There's a really fun YouTube channel. Since you're in sales, I assume you might be familiar, but in case you're not, for anyone else who's listening, there's a great channel called Charisma on Command. That does all kinds of basically charisma coaching, but he often does it in reference to pop culture characters, whether those are movie stars or the characters that they play. And there was one on who's the dwarf in Game of Thrones? Is that Tyrion?
Yes, that's his name. Or it's been a while. Peter Dinklage is the actor.
Yeah. Peter Dinklage's character. I think it's Tyrion Lannister, but like he was talking about like what makes that character so powerful as a character in the story. And the thing that makes him so good is he's never stating what he wants. He's always asking other people, what do you want? And that's that is the power move. Real power comes from providing to other people and like making yourself useful and not just coming up with things that you think other people should have, which is like the many dreams are dashed upon the rocky shores of broken hearts by artists who want to create something and only to find out nobody wants the thing they make. Like they don't want my beautiful thing, they want this other crappy thing. So there's a fine dance to do, but asking like what do you want and listening does seem to be like the power move.
It is. And if you'd ever notice in movies where they're showing an interrogation and the perp being interrogated, if he starts asking questions back, hey, I'm the one asking the questions here, because whoever's asking the questions is really who's in control of the dialogue.
I mean, it's like you've gotten a full education in Lord of the Earth archetype.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
And like what's beautiful about the what do you want question is that it's such a powerful sales move, but there's nothing inherently manipulative in it. Because if you say, what do you want? And I say, I want security or charisma, or I want to make more money. And you're like, I can show you how to do this. I can provide this for you. I can do that. I get what I want. You get what you want. It's this is how you create value, which is in I hate to use the word because it's so abstract, but like the economy, you're creating more value that moves through the society, and the more high quality, valuable things you create that move through more hands, the more energy you're bringing into the world. It's hard to just talk about without sounding like a freaking wizard, but it really is. You really do create. I don't know how to put this. Like you're creating a system that is greater than the sum of its parts when you are looking to other people to see what they want.
Working in sales has radically transformed how I view the world, because I've come to realize that there is a salesman responsible for moving just about everything that we see. Like there's industries dedicated to selling billboards, there's industries dedicated to selling printers,
Mhm.
there's industries dedicated to the most obscure technology you can imagine. There's someone who it's their sole job is to build trust and build clientele to move that product.
You know what I think it might be? I know, Tarmanos was anticipating Plato, but I think this might be an Aristotle episode. Uh, there is an Aristotelian virtue called magnanimity, which means greatness of soul or greatness of spirit. Magna, great, and it's it has been translated in the Christian era as being very forgiving and being very generous. But when you read Aristotle and the vices of extremity that magnanimity sits between, it's actually not. It doesn't have anything to do with forgiveness. It has to do with confidence in yourself and a certain assertive grandeur in your own estimation of yourself and in what you're providing. And I think any kind of positive self-talk has been talked down upon by a sort of Christian culture of modesty as something immodest or vain or vainglorious. And what Aristotle says is actually what that is the vice of being pusillanimous, which we've shortened to being a pussy, right? That means not thinking highly enough of yourself. Now, there is an extreme. There is an extreme of vaingloriousness, which is having a false positive vision of yourself. But you like so much of sales, and you know obviously a lot more about this than I do, but I've been to like one or two sales conferences. So much of it is just having confidence and faith in the goodness of the thing you're providing. And that seems to be a lot of what sales is. It's just yes, what I'm providing is good. If you want it, I can give it to you. It costs this much. And by the way, my confidence in the quality of the thing I'm providing is the justification for the cost, and so forth.
Yeah, I think confidence is probably the single most important personality factor in a quality salesperson, right next to grit. I don't know which one would come first, but
Grit.
those two,
What do you mean
grit,
by grit?
the ability to fail repeatedly and still pick yourself back up and move forward.
So, like in the context of sales, that's like being rejected. And
Resilience.
Evangelical persistence.
I like that.
Yeah, like the Mormons when you won't go to church with them, and you see
Right.
them every day, and they ask you this every day, and you say no, but they
And
keep asking.
in the context of talking about social media and connections with other people, so much of just our relationships with other people can be understood as an outgrowth of sales, because we're kind of selling ourselves in some ways. I mean, it's a very sort of prostitutional way of putting it, like you only value yourselves in a monetary sense. But sales, I think, is broader than just money and bigger than just financial exchange. Sales is basically, and correct me if I'm wrong in here, but is sales essentially the assertion of the value of a thing? Could we boil it down to that?
The assertion.
Yes.
It's the word. How would you define assertion?
The statement of the value of the thing. Like the thing that I'm selling is very valuable. Here's why it is valuable to you. This is why you should have it. And there's always caveats with this. Like so part of my job as an electrician, I do service work. I didn't always do service work. I used to do commercial work. But the service world is much busier where I am at currently, ebbs and flows. So a lot of my work is sales, and I don't I'm not always trying to upsell. When I go to a customer's house, I will tell them what I think they need. And sometimes the customer says, I think I need a panel change. And I'll look at their panel and be like, you don't need a panel change. These are the problems that we can fix for a tenth of the price. You don't need this. The other electrician who said that was wrong. Here's why. But sometimes they've got some really messed up stuff. And I'll be like, you need ground fault protection in your kitchen, and here's why. And then we'll explain the dangers of water and electricity and why we use ground fault protection in those contexts and other things like that. And stating the risks and why code is the way it is, and like, here's the parts, here's our labor and all this stuff, and here's why it's this, cost. Explaining the value in not just in financial terms. Finance just covers like the logistical requirements to do things in the world, but like, here's why you should have this life-saving technology around water in your house. Explaining that is the sales, I think.
It is. The reason I paused at the word assertion was because, kind of hinting to what we were talking about earlier, when I'm doing my job well, 80% of what is coming out of my mouth is a question. So to assert something is to make a statement. And there is definitely a time where making a statement is appropriate. I know nothing about electrical work. And if I were consulting you and inviting you in my home to help solve an electrical problem, I'm going to have nothing of value to contribute to that conversation. I would want you making statements diagnosing the problem.
Sure.
I can't help you.
I think the purpose of the question to first check to see if your product or service or your personality. So you're not selling a product. Say you're selling in the broad sense of selling a relationship. I want to connect with you because you seem like a cool person. Hey, what do you like? What do you believe? I'm positioning to see if there is a good opportunity or a fit here. And then from those questions comes the, hey, I think we should hang out. Hey, I think you should have this electrical upgrade to your system. Hey, I think you should buy my service. It will help your business a lot because these are the answers to my questions. And so the questions by themselves don't show value. Like, to go back to Tyrion Lannister and the example of charisma on command, like Tyrion's asking those questions to see what the other person wants. They say what they're after, and then he says, here's what I can do to help you with that. And there's always an assertion, a call to action, I think is the sales language, on the other side of those questions. Otherwise, those questions don't get you there. They're super important, but they never seem to be sufficient without a call to action of some sort.
Mm-hmm. It's all about timing when it comes to making that statement. If you make it too early, you might call that a sloppy pitch.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wait until the problem has become clearly defined and you help build a gap between where that person is currently with that problem and what that desirable end result would be, to help establish that gap, and they've clearly identified it, then you can begin making your statements.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you can go through and live an entirely functional life without thinking about sales at all. But you can also do normal things with a sort of sales interpretive filter on, and suddenly behaviors make sense in a different light. Like when we're on social media and we're just kind of doom scrolling and we're seeing friends are sending you funny memes. Those are like, you can interpret those as, hey, you should be friends with me because I'm funny and I'll make your life fun. That's not what they're trying to say, but that's what they are saying. And if they're good memes, it's true. It's like, hey, that is funny. Here's a meme in return because I thought it was funny. I think you'd find it funny too. And it's like, that's not what anyone's thinking when you do it. But like if you're creating a lot of interesting material online, that's a demonstration of value, and it's there's a very useful non-gross sales frame of understanding behavior and why some people become popular and have lots of friends and are charismatic while other people are not. And I think the I feel like the allergic reaction to sales is worth exploring because I think it keeps a lot of people lonely and also poor, myself included slightly, who otherwise don't need to be.
I'm
Yeah.
curious
Go
about
ahead.
something.
Yeah.
So beyond sales, like I know you've got other things on your mind, related to this. We've touched on the idea of building connections, deepening connections. Um, you know, uh, like how is that playing out? Like how is like being in the Order of Fire? You're one of the OG members basically, and has we interact through chats and online, in social media, the group as a whole. There's a lot of real connection made that way, which translates to real life. Just last weekend we had one of the best uh, Horseman ritual events to date. Um, we were there, you, me. Um, you met new people that you're collaborating with across the Atlantic Ocean on music projects. You met in person for the first time. Um, See, I want to hear like that kind of stuff right now from you. I have quite that's my question. Like how is being in the Order of Fire connecting that way in a really meaningful way through social media? Has that expanded into your daily life?
I mean, that it's one of the most amazing things that I've been a part of, that we can collaborate and talk in this magical app called Telegram,
Yeah.
and somehow we can bring people together from all different corners of the world into one location at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, that is magic. Every day we have all these profound conversations through the internet, and we get together in real life regularly, and we have these ritualized, you know, truly ritualized meetups in real life, but also the weekly ritual. We have our Sunday call in the evening. We have this Sunday show every week. Um, I mean, it's incredible.
Speaking of cool order stuff and social connections, I just want to throw out for a second because I just got this today. One of our members, who's an actual anthropologist, just published another book. It's called The Four Wolf Wisdoms by Philip Folsom. Very cool guy who teaches leadership courses in California with actual wolves involved, like from like primordial social principles, because humans are pack animals, like wolves, kind of like lions, but more like wolves. Um, and like I don't think you would talk about wolf interactions in terms of sales, but the principles of networking and connection are still there. And while the internet and social media have all kinds of dangers, the possibilities for connection are expanded dramatically, and many of the principles of good tribal social interaction apply on the internet as much as they apply in person. Although it's obviously better to meet up in person, but the internet can be a gateway to in-person meetups, which is neat.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't, you can't always be in person, and so why not stay connected?
I feel that the Order of Fire's online ecosystem functions in a way that social media as a broader concept was originally designed to replicate. Like, social media the early days of MySpace, early Facebook, it was about building a visible network and being able to bridge those relationships into real life meetups and events and groups. Um, and then somewhere along the way, actually pretty identifiable period of time around 2017, 2018, when the algorithm got introduced and you no longer saw a chronological feed of your friends, but you started seeing broader content as a whole. That's when the app shifted into being more of an entertainment focus and less of um a social facilitator.
Yeah.
So I
Friendster.
feel that the future trend of social media, now it seems like we're kind of at a tipping point where broader society is kind of getting burnt out of the dopamine drip that
Yeah.
is the algorithm. And I believe that the future of social media will look a lot more like what we've cultivated in the orders online ecosystem of intentional
Yeah,
online communities
that
that are
that word came into my head. Yeah, like people are like, oh, I'm taking control of this with my own intention, my own purpose, in order to make it not make me go insane. Yeah,
I
for sure.
experimented with that a little bit in the lead up to this ritual. I bought one of the bricks. I don't know if you've seen the advertisements for that, but it's a
I have,
magnet.
yeah.
And when you have the brick app on your phone, if you tap your phone to that brick, it will lock out any app that you've identified as a distracting app. So for the 60-day lead up to this ritual, I had all my distracting apps completely bricked. So no social media during the workday. I could only look at it in the evenings from the desktop computer. And one of the things that I found was in those like dull moments throughout the day, what people used to call boredom. I don't think anybody gets bored anymore. Um, I started, craving social interaction, and I would go to look at those apps, realize they're bricked, and then I would start directly messaging people that I'd lost contact with. So
Oh,
I
there you go.
met up and had coffee with my mentor from grad school. Hadn't seen him in 6 years, and I don't think that I would have had the initiative to do that without that moment of boredom on that particular day.
Interesting. Yeah. It is funny how much I think the younger generation is really coming to understand this more than the older generations, but millennials have an advantage over Gen X and boomers on this understanding of the power of enervation, of certain things sapping your time and attention in very kind of subtle ways. And when you take away those subtle drains on your attention, your drive, your motivation, suddenly you find that will to do things that you thought had just been taken away, but were actually always there. You just you didn't have the focus or the energy to pursue them. And the internet can be both that sapping tool, but also a mechanism and a window to pursue those things, to reach out to people more directly, which is cool.
Yeah, on my Instagram, I had pretty much taken everything personal off, and I kind of drew a line in the sand. I was like, I'm not going to just post anything and just throw it out in the void anymore. Like my social media interactions all happen in DMs these days. Like I'm trying to actually, I started a new Instagram so I could have a fresh start. And everyone that I follow is either someone that I know or someone who I want to get to know. Like I
Mhm.
only want real connections on this fresh page.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I use it a little bit differently because I'm very often sort of play testing ideas or um putting things out there for other people to share on a variety of stuff. But there are a variety of different ways, and not every method of using social media is appropriate for every person in every context. Um, I've been well, I shouldn't say that. There are times where it makes sense to be more active in some ways, and it always makes sense to take breaks from it as well. I think it's good to do periodic fasts to sort of reset your dopaminergic system and your nervous system a little bit in relation to social media, because it can become a dependency very quickly. But like what you're describing as far as keeping it contained and keeping it controlled is a good like father guided use of social media. I once heard Elliot Hulse describe his method for using his smartphone, and that was he always kept it leashed. And by leashed, he meant he always kept it plugged in, tethered to its charging cable. He never unplugged it. And it wasn't because he was worried about the battery dying, obviously. It was because he didn't want to have it with him all the time as that temptation. He could go and use it on its charging cable. But I thought that was very clever. It's kind of an interesting method. Probably won't work for everybody, but like there's all you probably won't have the same rule as someone else, but everyone, and I need to come up with one of these for myself, everyone should probably have some kind of constraint rule for themselves.
Yeah, I would agree. The brick is working well for me. I've heard of some other people where they will switch their phone into grayscale, so it becomes less enticing to look at.
That's clever.
It is. I think Andrew Huberman was where I first heard that.
That's really clever. I might try that.
Give it a go.
Yeah. I mean, the only game I do on my phone is chess, and a grayscale shouldn't change that at all. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's clever. Interesting.
I'm not going to make my phone grayscale.
Yeah, different methods for different people. And I mean, like, what's funny is I feel like social media has just amplified the speed of connection. It's not like the vices that social media enables didn't exist in the meat space world of social interactions prior to the internet. It has just sort of accelerated them and ramped them up. People could pursue hedonistic, short-term pursuits without the internet, back in the day. Many stories and warnings were written about that.
The 1980s happened.
Yeah.
So many things happen. I mean, back then, and I
say that too knowingly.
I spent a lot of those, late teenage into early 20s years, where you're really kind of being very sort of wildly social, and also in a place with a really pleasant climate that was very much an outdoor culture. And I mean, you actually did just you went to someone's house and knocked on the door. You did it, so you did it 5 times in a day. Oh, yeah, now we're going to go see old Jim or whatever. And you knock on the door and they're home, you go in. Or you say, hey, we're going to the park to, whatever, play volleyball. And then they get their shit together and come with you.
My best friend growing up wouldn't even knock. He would just walk in the garage, walk into our house and be like, hey, Chris, come outside. I'd be like, how'd you get in here?
That sounds like me and my job. I start my day with a list of 20 businesses I want to go see, and I just open up the door, walk in, introduce myself, shake some hands.
There you go. Yeah.
Making deals.
Yeah.
But it's social media. It's I sometimes wonder, I don't really have a problem with it, in the sense that I have things curated in a way where, if I open up Instagram, I have all the people I want to see set as favorites. So that's what I see. And after 5 minutes, I'm after all the memes that have been sent to me, and a couple cooking videos or something, I just put it down. But I spend more time, the most time I spend in my phone is in MyFitnessPal and Telegram.
Nice.
That's like the main thing. Because I watch YouTube on my TV, like it's real TV. So
Can I flip this for a second? Because I think the real danger of how people often talk in sales is that it treats these connections as tools and as means to ends. And it's like you can create social connections, and you can cash those in for money. And I think when you think about what people spend money on, because money is a placeholder for value, what do we care about most? I think at the root of things, at the very end of the day, what we care about most is not the money, it's the connections,
Mm.
And like sales is funny because in pursuit of money, it can be a great way to develop the social skills, to make these connections, which then become a network of value creation. We're all trading value with each other to get more higher quality things. But at the end of the day, it's not the money that's valuable; it's the connections that are valuable.
Mm.
And while those theoretically operate just on value, no one knows that you are valuable. No one knows that the things you have to offer are valuable if you don't know how to convey that in a socially appropriate and at least somewhat charismatic manner. So, like, the tools of sales are useful for business, but they're also useful for the social connection that is I think, the foundational substance of value in human life generally. It's that mental connection with other people that makes life enjoyable and worth living. At least mental connection with high quality people.
mm,
That's been my experience. I have just gotten so connected to the 50-mile radius surrounding my home, and just meeting so many people, and really just learning what people do all day. Like, everyone is, for the most part, pretty passionate about what they do, and they have this niche expertise that I know nothing about. It's like, it's kind of talking about like what you said about people kind of being on guard against sales, because they know that you have a motive. If you can shift your focus away from, if you're in a sales role, if your goal becomes not can I make a sale, but can I make a meaningful connection today, you will increase your sales tenfold. Most people are super excited to tell you about their struggles that day if you come in with the right attitude, if you come in as a good listener and just
Oh
ask
yeah.
them about some of the stuff that's been troubling them. And if you just come in with an earnest mind and just want to learn about what they do, I go into manufacturing places and just ask for a tour. And there's just so many cool things being built in my community that I would have never known anything about had I not just had the initiative to just walk in the door and just say hello.
and there's always motives in any kind of connection or relationship, whatever the relationship is. There's a motive, and a motive is not necessarily an insidious thing. People think
Mhm.
of sales as like the used car salesman trying to sell you a piece of, trying to get something, trying to get more for himself by giving you something of less value. But when, like you were saying about, uh, can I make a meaningful connection today? That's a human need, right? And so you're making this connection, you're providing something of actual value with a measure of sincerity, and the person who purchases the product has felt like they were listened to, and they feel like they're receiving some kind of value and also a type of connection. And it's like a real, it's a type of human relationship that doesn't have to be perceived as some sort of seedy transactional thing. It can be you know
Leading with a value first mindset is the key to success. And there's also a philosophy that I adhere to that I've heard called giver's gain,
Yes.
where you are trying with no selfish motive, you are trying to give and provide for other people. And you trust that through doing that, through karmic return, you will also benefit. So, I mean, one of my favorite ways to earn those relationships and build that trust is by learning about what people do and helping them get business, find them leads. Um, you know,
And if you, what's wild is if you just do things and create things of quality and value, even if you don't charge for it, that law of reciprocity is so real. If I could share a personal example from, I've been running this Homer course for a little over 2 years now, almost 2.5 years. One group has finished, another group is halfway through. And like I haven't been charging for it. I've just been like, because it's fun for me to do and I find it valuable. And I like sharing this knowledge I've stumbled upon and stolen from other people, and some of it I've come up with myself. And people will just give you things. One member who actually had to leave because he was doing school stuff, but he was through the first half of the first go round, sent me this sterling watch. This is like almost a $500 watch that he just gave me because he felt like it, wanted to. And like, I can't wait to be older. I probably won't be ever as wealthy as him, but like when you get to that stage of life where you have things, and I'm beginning to get there a little bit with people who are younger than me, where I can just give people books, and it's so gratifying. It's so rewarding to be able to see someone doing something and be like, here, let me help you out. Let me give you something. And providing like, that's actually a positive feeling, that like it's pleasurable to give. And it's pleasurable to give on the initiating side of just like running a course, or putting valuable information out there, even at no cost. And it is pleasurable to compensate other people for the value that you feel like they're giving to the world as well. And that's obviously, you can't run an entire economy on this just voluntarism, no matter what libertarians dream of. But as an illustration of the principle of reciprocity that you're describing at work, it is borderline magical how that can work sometimes.
it is. I do a lot of kind of, one of my main strategies for sales is referral networking. So getting together with other sales professionals in different industries, setting intentional meeting times for us to come together and talk about what we do, who we're looking to meet, who our ideal clientele are, if there's any specific names that we might be trying to get connected to. And it's like everyone in the room is in the same struggle. Um, so you all kind of have a mutual understanding of how difficult sales can be. So you're trying to collaborate together to help bridge that gap between how do you go from being a stranger to a trusted advisor. And that's often with the power of a warm introduction from someone who already knows who you're trying to get connected to. And one of my favorite pleasures in networking is whenever you know someone that someone else in the room is trying to get connected to, and making that introduction. And then when I find out that they were able to close business with that person, I feel like I made the sale. I'm just as excited whenever
Yes.
I hear that my word, my introduction helped someone make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
It does feel magical.
Yeah. And it's like you get to be, there's a, in his Civilization and His Discontents, Freud describes this almost oceanic feeling of like losing yourself in a greater mass of consciousness that is like the root of spiritual experience. And when you act as grease in the gears for something larger than yourself. There's a little degree of that. It's not the grandiosity of like a true spiritual experience or anything like that, but it's like it's a hint of that. It's like it's a dash of that when you see two people you introduce going off and making something bigger happen. You're like, I got to be a part of that a little bit. I once had a martial arts instructor who who's the 48 laws of power? Robert Greene. His first law of power is like never outshine the master. If you want to rise in power and control others, never outshine the master. My martial arts instructor, he was like, my goal is to make all of you better martial artists than me. My goal is to make all of you outshine the master, because that reflects well on me. If I can make you better than me, that's good for me. That makes me feel good and look good. And I think that's the higher tiered, the higher energy take within the closed system of a society that is working together in some way.
Nice.
So anyways, I guess we don't need to sales pitch sales too much more, but it is important to talk about, because every day it can be a case of confirmation bias of the dishonesty and the sliminess and the grossness by association of sales stuff. So it is important to remind ourselves that like all of those instances of confirmation bias are only one side of what is essentially a good, not just a good, but like an essential, an important thing. I think that can be used for good. And not just can be used for good, but is itself essentially good. Because it is this, it's almost the science of connection in some ways.
It is.
I think most of sales and how people talk with sales, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Demortis, but isn't most of sales still rooted in Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People?
I haven't read that book. I mean, it very well could be. I probably should read that book.
Yeah.
But my background is in psychology. I got my master's in psych, and I was training to become a clinical psychologist. So I was taking some of the doctoral level classes in diagnosis and interview techniques and all of that. And when I first started pivoting over into business and I was having some interviews, I'd be asked like, background in psychology, you're doing neuroscience research. Now you're going into office equipment sales. Like that's quite a pivot. And it seemed like it initially, but in retrospect, I don't think there could have been a better field for me to go into to be successful in sales than psychology, because that clinical interviewing process is actually very similar to a sales discovery process. Like if you were to come to me as a client and I'm your therapist and you tell me a little bit about your life and I just start didactically telling you what you need to do, there's going to be psychological resistance because I'm a stranger. We don't have rapport yet. But if over time I just ask really good, open-ended questions, but structure them in a narrative to help frame your problems and use my questions as a mirror to show you what changes you need to make, then the solution to your problems is coming from you. It's not coming from me. And that's how sales ought to be as well. I can't sell you something. You can only sell it to yourself. My job is just to ask the questions.
I mean, the same psychology is used in personal training. It's behavior modification. Personal training is the same thing. Open-ended questions, and then you break down the barriers that the person believes are there. You help them with that, and then you collaborate on a solution that's actually all there is in the end.
There is an asterisk in that, because this is what Scott Adams used to say about hypnotism. Scott Adams, for those of you who don't know, the late and great Dilbert cartoonist and political commentator, was also a trained hypnotist. And he would often say, hypnotism and hypnosis cannot make you do anything you don't want to do. And then he'd pause, and then he'd say, but of course the hypnotist can make you want to do it. so you have to like, hypnotists will say that, and they are technically not wrong, because like what you're describing as far as the resistance is concerned is true, but it's about the science of using linguistic tools to overcome or bypass, more appropriately, bypass that resistance. And this is where it can begin to feel very slimy, right? Because people will use these tools for all kinds of things. And I had some coworkers who are electricians who came from sales, who came from like car sales or real estate and stuff. And one of the reasons they left sales to get into the trades was because there is this kind of like Tolkienian disease of power that comes to particularly car salesmen, apparently, where once they start learning the sales technique, they'll start using it in their relationships, marriage. They'll try to make open marriages work and things like that. Always goes down in a ball of flames. But it works for a little while, because sales is that powerful. And but I think it's like letting go of the tool set doesn't remove the tool set from the world, and it doesn't prevent the tool set from working on you. That's one of the incredible things about persuasion that many of the social media people, like Tristan Harris, a very famous Silicon Valley ethicist who's been in the news over the last decade for all kinds of things, have pointed out, even if you understand how the persuasion tools work, they still work on you. Awareness of them doesn't prevent them from working. So then it becomes a question of, well, again, we're back to Aristotle, who says, it is absurd to think that men should be not ashamed of the art of the use of limbs for their own protection, but not ashamed of not knowing how to use their language for the same purpose, when the use of language is more unique to the human animal than the use of limbs. You can use sales techniques and sales talk for connection and the pushing of value of genuinely good things. If someone is using sales technique to persuade people to go to the gym, to sleep better, to make more in-person friendships, and to like they are making the world a better place, and if you leave sales only to the people who are pushing prescription drugs and fast food and cigarettes or whatever else, like, you're not making the world better, because you're ignoring a tool set that is sometimes used by bad people. And I hope I'm not sounding like a broken record, but like, repetition matters on this point, because we're hit by so much repetition, and the repetition is pointed out of the sales that is used for evil. And it's easy to just completely miss the sales techniques that are used so casually and so like the water we're swimming in our relationships, in our good positive business dealings where we do get the things we want, that is easy to overlook and easy to forget to notice sometimes.
One of the best sales demonstrations that I've ever seen was actually in a coaching call where I was the potential client seeking out physical training. It was Ethan Buck.
Oh yeah, he's really good.
He's really very good. And what stood out to me was whenever we're talking about goal setting, and he'd asked me what some of my fitness goals were. And I told him, I want to have a shredded epic back. I want to have really wide lats. And it's like, I'm expecting him to be like, oh yeah, I can get you there. But instead, he's like, how would your life change if you
Yeah.
did have a big, epic shredded back? I'm like, that's a good question. That's a thinker. I, I don't know if it would change that much. He's like, that's going to be a lot of work. Do you think that you could commit to that? And I'm like, maybe. He's like, do you really want it though? I'm not doing it as well as he could have, but like
Yeah.
every goal that I stated, he kind of poked holes in it. And
Well,
like it made me
yeah.
reframe. I'm like, am I just saying this because like I feel like I'm supposed to be saying this because it's been like memed into me that this is something that's desirable to have? Like, is this genuinely coming from me? And it's like he's kind of, I guess, seeing how committed you are to the goal beforehand, before both of us get invested into something. And just that he was willing to kind of poke holes in the goals, like made me trust him as an advisor, because he's not just making empty promises to guide me to whatever I say. He's actually trying to act as a consultant to make sure that my goals are in alignment with my higher ideals.
It also does that. The technique he was doing is a clever, and it's a multi-purpose tool. It does filter away people who maybe can't commit or don't have a realistic understanding of what's entailed in all these things. But what he's also doing when he asks you, how would your life change if you were to have an epic back? And maybe you happen to be dating or married to a woman who's like really into guys with big backs or something like that. And you can visualize that. That visualization makes the goal more visceral and increases its value. It's a shift of attention, and our subjective valuation is directly proportional to how much we think about, how much time and attention we devote to it. That's why so much of political media, it doesn't matter what the valence of the subject is, so long as you get people thinking about it. Agnetor just put out that article a few weeks ago about the circus. What was the title? The ringmaster's advice, or something like all publicity is good publicity. Yeah. That is not always true, but all publicity increases attention and valuation, positive or negative. And that the more you can get someone to visualize something, the more important it is. I was playing around with this idea because I was helping a couple guys get stronger and fitter, and I had them use AI tools to create an aged version of themselves, visual. And it's kind of a fun shtick. It's not the highest tier version of this kind of thing, but if you create an older, aged version of your face and you look at that older face and you think the behavioral habits and dietary habits I have now, it's not just me, it's caring for this person in the future. Wow. My actions will affect this person. It makes it visceral. It makes it, you feel it in your body, and it changes the feeling and the weight of those decisions in a way that increases the value of your health, because now it's this other person that you're hurting or helping as well. And so his technique is a filter for people who are like, oh, I guess I was just wanting to be, ripped and swollen and shredded because it's like the meme-ish thing to do. But it's also
my life changes.
Yeah.
Who cares if my life changes? I want an epic back. Give it to me.
Right. I would like an epic back. But it also gets you thinking about that image too. And that's a powerful sales technique as well. Visualization.
So Tormenos, I'm curious what you would add here, because I know that you have been studying to become a physical trainer yourself. And I know that you've been reading probably a lot of these interview techniques and goal setting techniques. And I mean, really training is that is, you don't get much more relationship building than that.
I mean, you hope that's when it's going to work, right? But I mean, a lot of the behavior modification stuff, you know, it's all very similar to management training I've had in the past, or you know, when I was in psych, I worked in psych, you know, 30 something years ago, and a lot of it's the same thing: open-ended questions, breaking down barriers, and you know that the person is the you have to assume that they're the expert on themselves. You know, like when you're selling something, you have to assume that you know they're well, you kind of want to tell them what they need too, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, it's very similar.
Yeah, that's always my approach when I go out in the field and talk to people. I always remember that everyone believes that they are the star of their own movie, and you should help them feel that way.
Yeah, we should feel that way.
Yeah. Because they are, just as you are the star of yours.
Yeah.
Although things work more smoothly for everybody if you see your role as the star as, you know, bringing value to other people, which is a heroic role in some ways. You don't have to die for other people, but you can bring value to other people.
Yeah.
So cool. That seems like a good place to end it. You guys have any final thoughts? We can go just over an hour now on networking, connections, social media, dangers, values, sales. That they all tie together, and I think so much of solar idealism gets wrapped up in like the romanticism of the father and the striker. Very, very like thematic, very powerful and mysterious kind of figures. But as I was talking to another member who's an accountant a couple of weeks ago, he's like, you know, if you really break it down, 98% of our life is spent more in the Lord of the Earth domain than the father and the striker. You know, 0.01% is spent in the father. Some sort of maintenance habits are spent in striker, and most of it is maintenance of our house, our freaking dripping faucet, our relationships, food, cooking, maintaining the yard, maintaining our business, all the mundane ordinariness. But that can be approached in the sacred, almost deific spirit of the Lord of the Earth, and improved just as the skills of the father and the striker.
Yeah,
and it would make the world a better place if people, I think, approached it that way.
Yeah, and the father is kind of the executive function behind it anyway.
That's true.
You know.
That is very true. So that does sort of tie it together and bring a little bit of that sometimes needed energy to the development of these otherwise mundane seeming skills like gardening or sales or fixing your car.
Well, and those things all work within the realm of order is required. Like foundational order is required in order for those things to, you know, be done properly.
Yeah. Well, perfect. That seems like a good place to call it. Demoritus, thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome.
This is New Store and Terminos, and we will talk more next Sunday. Stay solar.
Stay solar.
Stay solar.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Journal of Solar Culture. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and leave us a comment. The first volume of our journal is available in paperback and now, finally, on Kindle. Pick it up in our store or on Amazon.